What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. A lot of stuff took place yesterday. We had the kind of small but pretty jam-packed indie event for Nintendo where they just showed off a bunch of indie games that were showing up pretty much for the rest of this year. I mean, they went all the way into pretty much fall, so they had a bunch of games there. And there were even some that were announced away from the indie event, which was very interesting. And we're going to go over all of that. The MPD results came out for February. We're going to take a look at that. That does technically end minus maybe 3 days of the Nintendo Switch. It's first full year, of course. There's still 3 days of March, technically, to round it all the way out for 2018. But this is going to give us an entire look, and there was a very interesting statistic that they did reveal to us for how the Switch did in its first year when compared to other first years out there. And a little bit of a spoiler, it ended up being a record-setting year for the Switch. We're going to talk about all of that and more, guys, for today. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to start with is what seemingly was the never-ending struggle for Ubisoft to retain pretty much ownership of its company. If you recall, Vivendi was consistently buying up shares, controlling shares, eventually trying to do a hostile takeover. We covered it a lot. There was a lot of concern, a lot of speculation last E3 when people thought that that may have been Ubisoft's last real E3, as Vivendi was pretty much getting to a point where they could essentially take over the company without them wanting it to. So Vivendi wanted to, the owners of Ubisoft did not, and it looks like they struck a deal. And this deal is allowing Ubisoft to pretty much get rid of Vivendi completely. So what is happening here is Vivendi is pretty much selling their shares back to Ubisoft and another company they made a deal with. All 30 million shares are going back to Ubisoft, with some of them being partitioned off for the other company. It was very weird to see this. This was a very surprising deal, as most analysts have said, and most people in general did not expect Tencent to get involved here. That's right, Tencent. You may know Tencent, actually, since we saw things like Arena of Valor show up even on the Switch. They, of course, at this point, own a controlling stake in Riot Games, who owns League of Legends. They own a majority stake in Epic for Unreal Engine 4, Fortnite, that kind of stuff. Yeah, Tencent makes a deal and helps Ubisoft buy back all of that stock from Vivendi. And with this partnership, in this case, Tencent will now own 5% of Ubisoft, but it's not enough to actually make any real changes in the boardroom. So it's odd to see Tencent do this unless they're trying to make their way in so that they can eventually take over Ubisoft. It's not uncommon to see this, and it's going to be very interesting to see going forward how this works out. Now, Ubisoft mentions this partnership as being good for them, as it will allow them to bring their IPs more into China. So they'll be able, like Assassin's Creed, for example, might be able to have a bigger impact in China with Tencent's help. Now, of course, Tencent is a massive company at this point, big Chinese publisher, and they've been making their way into the West a bit here. Like I said, they already have a controlling stake with Epic, and they have a controlling stake with Riot Games, and they have a small stake now with Ubisoft. We'll see if that grows, but for now, Ubisoft appears to be safe from Vivendi, who was closing in with over 27% of controlling shares, now all going back to Ubisoft. So if you're concerned about the situation or worried, just know it seems fine. Everything is good. It seems that at this point, Ubisoft has their shares back with a 5% take going to Tencent. We'll just have to keep an eye on that situation going forward. But for now, Ubisoft is safe. Next up, let's talk about the Nindies, or the indie event for Nintendo. Now, they've done this before. This is last year, where they showed off a ton of indie games pretty quickly. In this case, it was even more rapid fire than last time. I mean, seriously, they squeezed, but after I looked at the list, I was a little surprised to see how many games they actually squeezed into what felt like 10 minutes, maybe even less than that. They squeezed a lot of indie games. I'm going to go down the list with any kind of release date or window that they gave us. So some of them, they didn't give us anything. I'm just going to go down the list here so you can hear all the games that they announced, and I'll show you some of the footage from the event. So here we go. Let's start with the top. Bad North is coming summer 2018. It's going to be first on the Nintendo Switch, and then it will go to other systems and consoles after that. Banner Saga 1, 2, and 3 are all coming. Banner Saga 1 and 2 are coming soon, whereas Banner Saga 3 is coming summer 2018. I assume that they want Banner Saga 1 and 2 out before 3, but we'll have to see how that all shakes out. Bomb Chicken, summer 2018, also first on Nintendo Switch, and then I assume we'll go to other platforms after that. Fantasy Strike, summer 2018, Garage, which was Tiny Build's game that they did show off in a stream after that even on Twitch on their own channel. Spring 2018, also first as a timed exclusive on the Nintendo Switch. Just Shapes and Beats, Summer 2018, also first on Nintendo Switch. Lightfall, Spring 2018, first on Nintendo Switch. Luminous Remastered, Spring 2018. I was very happy to see that game make the jump to the Switch. I think it makes a ton of sense. I played it a lot on the PSP, and here it is now getting a remastered, moving to the Switch, and appears other platforms as well. Very cool there. Mark of the Ninja Remastered, Fall 2018. Great game, by the way. It's actually been out for a while. I played it on Steam a lot, and this is a good one to pick up later on this year. The Messenger looks awesome. I'm really excited for The Messenger. That is coming sometime summer 2018. No specific release date, but that game looks great. It looks like kind of an homage back to the Ninja Gaiden games from NES, except in this case, you do make the jump from 8-bit to 16-bit, which is you going from the past to the future, and that's how they kind of transition back and forth. Super excited for that one. Pod is coming spring 2018. Pool Panic 2018. Also, that is a first on the Nintendo Switch, and according to them, so far a system exclusive. Reigns, Kings and Queens, Spring 2018. West of Loathing, Spring 2018, system exclusive. And then we heard about Hollow Knight ahead of the Nindies. We will get more information about Hollow Knight later on this week. They made that very clear. We will find out more about Hollow Knight at some point, maybe even tomorrow or Friday, from their Twitter handle. So keep an eye on their Twitter account to see when Hollow Knight is showing up. Another interesting announcement that was not a part of this indie presentation, Hyper Light Drifter is coming to Nintendo Switch sometime soon. They just said it's coming 2018, and there you go. That's the one that everyone said in that stream. They're like, oh, I hope Hyper Light Drifter is coming. That'd be really cool. That's gonna be great to see. They didn't show up in the Indies presentation. Instead, they announced it afterwards on Twitter. So there you go. It is coming over at some point this year, just no actual specific release date or anything. We'll just have to keep an eye out for when it does show up. Overall, I think some people were pretty disappointed with this indie presentation. I think they were very rapid fire with this thing. They didn't spend any time, and there was no massive announcement, right? There was nothing here that was like, whoa, that's a big announcement. That's really cool to see. Last time we had No More Heroes there, right? That was a big one to see. Golf Story finally got its release window at least, then it came out a few weeks later. But this one, nothing big, nothing massive, and they didn't really play it up to be this big thing. I wish they had said tune in for about 10 minutes of presentation here, because that would have at least taken the hype level down a bit. When they say 10 minutes of indie games, you've been like, okay, not a ton here. It'll just be a fun little presentation to watch. A ton of games were there, nothing really large, smaller indie games, and I was okay with it for what they showed. I guess I would have liked to have seen Hollow Knight, or even, I just don't know why Hyper Light Drifter wasn't in this. It's very interesting. A lot of things were missing, as people said, but we'll have to see going forward when other things get release dates, and people were even calling for things like Fortnite. Fortnite's not an indie game. That'll be probably at E3 if it's going to happen. That's not something you save for a small presentation like this. Next up, let's quickly touch on a Super Smash Bros. Guest character that could, I guess, happen. I'm trying to figure out where Nintendo falls on this, because they haven't even said anything, but I think it makes a ton of sense, because this is a game, this is a character a lot of us know, and we kind of relate this character to Nintendo platforms, specifically the Nintendo 64, and that's Banjo-Kazooie, or just Banjo with Kazooie, I guess in this case. Now, a while ago, a couple of years, 2015 actually, Phil Spencer was asked, hey, would you let Banjo-Kazooie, or Banjo and Kazooie, enter Super Smash Bros.? Would you like to do that? And he said, yes, we have a good working relationship with Nintendo. We've done projects in the past. I would absolutely love to see this, and I think we get this done. Now, again, he's asked, this was yesterday, are you still okay with Banjo going to Super Smash Bros.? In which case he simply replied, yes, I am. So, could Banjo make his way to Super Smash Bros.? I would like to see it. I just have to see if Nintendo would do this, because they seem to have a decent relationship with Microsoft now. We're going to go to a point where we're signing into our Xbox Live accounts even to play Minecraft. So that's a pretty big jump there. It's a pretty big relationship to have. Crossplay, of course, is in full effect here between the Switch and the Xbox with things like Rocket League, right? So yeah, why not? I say bring Banjo over. I think he has enough history with Nintendo platforms, back with Banjo-Kazooie on the Nintendo 64 and Banjo-Tooie. Sure, technically Rare and Banjo is a Microsoft-owned IP right now, but he has so much history. I don't see why you can't make a little exception, bring him in. It's not like I haven't done that with other things like Cloud, for example. You know, why not bring him in and make a big splash? I think that's an announcement along with Crash. Crash would send people going crazy, right? Because that's still seen as a Sony character, even though it's owned by Activision. But Banjo at least makes sense. He has history with the system, the brand. I say bring him in and let's see that reaction. Next up, the Street Fighter Collection got a release date. That's something people have been waiting for because we knew it was coming up. It is coming out May 29th. And of course, it's coming out for all systems, the Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Capcom also gave people a little bit of a pre-order bonus for all systems except for the Switch. PS4, Xbox One, and PC will have the opportunity to pre-order and receive Ultra Street Fighter 4 free of charge. Now that is an older Street Fighter, it's not Street Fighter 5, but still, you can receive it just for pre-ordering this game, especially if you're already going to get it and you're dead set on it. I mean, pre-order it and get Ultra Street Fighter 4 at this point. Why not? I think the Switch version isn't included because that game wasn't on the Switch, so they wouldn't be able to give Switch owners that. But if you're planning on getting on other systems, no, it is coming out May 29th. It's going to be $40. And if you pre-order ahead of time, you get Ultra Street Fighter 4. I guess it's technically a free game. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the NPDs from February. They were released last night. And this, of course, are mostly physical, but they also have some digital sales added in. It's kind of hit or miss. They don't count the eShop, for example, but they count other things. They don't count Battle.net, but they count sometimes the PlayStation Store. It's kind of all over the place, but it gives us an idea where everything was, and it tells us how the hardware did in ranks, of course, 1, 2, 3. In this case, the PS4 did sell at number 1. It was the number 1 selling console in February. According to other leaked NPD charts, the Xbox was second and the Switch was third. Now, you can kind of guess what game was number 1 for February. It was Monster Hunter, absolutely was Monster Hunter World, and that did leave the charts for both PlayStation and Xbox, so it was number 1 for both of those individual charts, whereas Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was number 1 for the Nintendo Switch with individual charting. Now I'm going to show you the top 10 here, and this will have all of the games from all systems added in. Number 1 is Monster Hunter World, as we just went over. Call of Duty WW2 is number 2. NBA 2K18 number 3. Dragon Ball FighterZ number 4. Grand Theft Auto 5 will never go away. It's ranked at number 5. Shadow of the Colossus 2018 number 6. UFC 3 at 7. Kingdom Come Deliverance number 8, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe number 9, and then Super Mario Odyssey at number 10. If you're wondering where Bayonetta was, Bayonetta 2 ranked in at number 14. The overall sales were up from last February, so gaming remains healthy, up 23% from last February in total spend, and then the hardware was up 55% from last February, mostly because there is a competent system from Nintendo, the Switch, not the Wii U, from last year, this year with the Switch, and that obviously helped the hardware sector a lot, being up 55% over last February. Now we're going to get into the months with March and going forward when there was a Switch on the marketplace a year ago, so this is where things will become more interesting. We'll see those margins probably get a little slimmer. It's also possible that things like the Xbox and the PS4 won't be selling as well as last year and the year before and the year before that as it starts to kind of peak. The PS4 is going to be interesting getting towards the end of this year. I'm curious if it will continue its momentum as, of course, they keep putting more of these things in people's homes. You start to get near that 80 million mark, and that's kind of what happened last generation with the 360 and the PS3. Started to kind of peter out a bit there towards 80 million, and that's kind of right around there where it started to really slow down. So I'm going to be curious if the PS4 can continue momentum and get to the 90, 95 million maybe by the end of this year. That would put it on track with something like the original Wii and how fast that was selling. But it's going to be interesting to see if that can happen. They also shared another very interesting statistic, like I said at the beginning of the show, for the Switch. Its first year on the market and NPD recorded sales, it is the best-selling system in a first-year period. So the first year for the PS4, first year for the Xbox, first year for the Wii. The Switch is the best-selling system for the first year in terms of units sold. So the Switch now has that crown. The second year is where things will start to get very interesting for the little system because it is going to be, of course, compared to Nintendo's best-selling home console with the Wii. And the Wii had a breakout year in its second year. Nintendo got its production figured out. It really started to push these units to the mainstream. And the Wii ended up selling 24 million units in its second year. So will the Switch be able to match that? That is going to be the part that we'll have to see. Now, Pokemon, we believe, will be here. Smash will also be here. And that could help. But 24 million is a tall order to climb here. I mean, it's not going to be easy, right? It's not going to be easy at all. I mean, the PS4 probably won't get to the Wii's, in this case, the Wii stature, where it's at 95 million after 5 years. It's tough. It is. The Wii really set the benchmark for massive sales in a short period of time. But hey, it's always fun to see. It's always fun to track these and see what happens. So the Switch, as far as we know now, is probably around, we want to say 16, 17 million, probably closer to 17 million, maybe a little more in terms of shipped units. And we'll see what happens in its second year. But it's fun to watch these things, and we'll keep tracking it. But know now, the Switch set the mark for best selling in its first year. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today. Whether it is the Switch's first year, are you surprised that Nintendo had such a massive turnaround for the Switch? I feel like a lot of people are. The Switch was going to do well. I think a lot of people realized after the first few months it was going to do well, but wasn't really going to do this well. This is pretty good, and now the second year is where people are going to watch. But let me know what you think about the Switch's first year and the NPD results from February. Are you surprised that Monster Hunter has seriously crushed everything? It's great to see it, because I think a lot of people who are fans of the series wanted to see it kind of evolve and do better and better. Monster Hunter World seems to be the culmination of the entire series here for Capcom, so hats off to them. It's great to see. What do you think of the Nindies, I guess, that happened? What do you think about Ubisoft kind of partnering with Tencent to get away from Vivendi? Do you think that's a great idea? Do you think it's the only move they even had at this point? Because Tencent is known to buy up stakes in some of these companies, as we saw with Epic, for example. So we'll have to wait and see if they decide to strike on Ubisoft, or if this really just was a partnership and it just happened to get Ubisoft away from Vivendi. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.